What's up, guys? Welcome back to Cafecito Wyo Episode 2. I know we were supposed to have a guest on today. Something came up for them and something personal, and that's all good. But today we're going to be discussing something that everybody talks about and is something that all high school people have struggled with. So sit back, join me in drinking some Cafecito Cubano. Actually have some this time. So, here we go. It is a struggle for people. It's been a struggle for me getting used to the adult life after high school, right? I graduated in 23, so I'm heading into my last year in college. But people talk about getting through high school, right? Nobody really talks about what happens after. What are we supposed to do? Do I go to college? Do I not go to college? Do I enter the workforce? What does the adult world look like, basically? And I think a lot of people secretly, they feel lost after graduation. I certainly felt lost. There was a point in time, I want to say, probably June, literally right after my senior year, where I was in this limbo, right? I was trying to figure out if all my college expenses were going to line up, how that was going to look like, if I was going to stay at home with my parents, or if I was going to stay on campus, how much money that was going to be. That was really a struggle for me, right? And mentally, I didn't really feel like I was prepared for the switch after high school. So by no means am I an expert at any of the topics I'm going to be talking about, but I think for kind of the purpose of my podcast is to connect to people, right? And I want to have this be more so like not only a guiding light for other people that are coming out of high school struggling with it, or freshmen or sophomores in college, whatever the case may be. I think it's also like a growing tool for me, a way to discuss my feelings and discuss really what happens. I'm heading into my senior year, and I'm really uncertain about what happens after that, actually going into teaching and doing my own stuff. What is that going to look like? I still haven't really made the switch from the mental switch that teachers need to make from being a student, right? Being a student 12 years, K through 12, and then you're a student 4 more years in college, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into being in a school and being the adult in the room. I turn 22 next year, right before I start teaching. How am I going to be as a 22-year-old, the adult in the room for all these kids that, a lot of them, they go to school, and as we all know, sometimes they don't really care so much that they're there. And I think I struggled with that too until I kind of realized that school was a purpose in my life, right? School was important for me. And I think a lot of people also feel the same way, that school doesn't really connect to me. Why am I in school? Why am I forced to be in school? And they see it as an opportunity or privilege to be able to go to a classroom. Instead, they see it more like as an obligation, something that is forced upon them to be in school. And I think really that falls on teaching a lot, right? The education system is not, in the U.S. as a whole, is not in the greatest spot. Obviously, there's individual districts or individual states that do better than others. And my goal as a future educator is to be able to do as much as I can for my students. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, this is one of those ways, right? I know I touched on some political stuff in my first episode, but that was just me showcasing and telling kind of my personal convictions and my personal thinking. But by no means is that what, again, most of the topics of this podcast are going to be. And again, to kind of diverge a little bit from that, I did reach out to a bunch of different people to come on the podcast. And that was something that came up. I think some people maybe confused or I haven't really gotten the podcast in motion yet. Obviously, this is my second episode. So we're going to get the podcast situated. We're going to get a foundation, and then we're going to start bringing people in. Obviously, we're going to discuss topics of school, and everything's going to be productive, right? I want people to be able to come on, and obviously I'm going to do the same. If something is criticized, how can that criticism, obviously constructive, that I myself give or my guests give to the education system as a whole, or whatever the case may be, how can I, as a future educator, improve on that, right? How can I be better for my students? So, kind of the first thing that I want to talk about is the illusion of adulthood, basically after high school. I don't really know what I expected turning 18. I turned 18. I graduated at 17 in May, and then I didn't turn 18 until August. So I don't know what I was thinking really, that like turning 18 I was gonna be able to do all these things as an adult, and it's not really what happened for me. Maybe that is the case for others, and it is true that some people, they turn 18 and they're off on their own. But I'm fortunate enough to still be connected to my parents, still be living with them, and being able to enjoy their hospitality basically with me as now a growing adult at 20 years old. And a lot of things changed, right? A lot of things did change. I think not like the college experience, my freshman year was so much different than high school. Being able to pick your own classes, being able to obviously pick your own major. I had a bunch of history classes, obviously because I'm going into history, and I had a bunch of education classes. That's something that you don't really see at the high school level, right? Students don't get to pick their classes. They get, thrown into whatever. I don't really like math. I never really liked math class. So in college, I'm able to skip one of those core sections, and I skip math. I haven't taken a math class. It's just not for me. So I think the college freedom in that standpoint is really great. If you want to focus on education and do all that stuff, awesome. I think college freedom also comes with a lot of downfalls. I think a lot of people go into college thinking party, 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 and good for them, but that isn't really my experience. That's not something that I can attest to. Obviously, staying at home with my parents and not being on campus changed that perspective for me. It was more so, my freshman year was a lot about doing homework, going to class, going to work. It was less having fun and more working and school and all that stuff. And it's kind of been my trajectory up until last semester, where I was able to go study abroad in Spain, which I might talk about in this episode or maybe another one. The freedom also transcends to having more responsibility, right? You have to be aware of that responsibility that you attain when you turn 18. That's a huge thing that I went through. And it took me a minute, right? It's not something that is automatic. It's not something that, you graduate and then the next day you're like, I have all this responsibility, I'm an adult, all this stuff. Nor does it happen when you turn 18. It can happen anytime, right? It's a personal thing. And there's really no built structure. There's no plan. There's no perfect plan for people. There's no I, myself, or any counselor or anybody will not ever be able to tell you this is exactly what the college experience is going to be like, right? Because right now I'm obviously sharing my experience with you all, but it's not going to be the same experience you're going to have, right? It's going to be totally different. Even if you pick the same college as someone, even if you pick the same major, the same everything, your experience is going to be different than other people. Obviously, my high school experience was different than a lot of you that are watching this. And that's okay, right? That's really life in general. Nobody's life is the same as others. Same with college experience, same with the high school experience. And Something that really hit me per se, a lot actually, was the friendships changing. I had a lot of friends in high school. I had a lot of connections and a lot of people that, you saw day in and day out, and people that are probably watching this right now, right, I haven't seen in over 3 years. And that is okay. I think it's a struggle. Obviously, the whole transition is a struggle. So this just adds on to it. But I think you have to focus on the positives, right? My two or three close friends right now were not as close with me in high school. That is something that happens to a lot of people, where your friends after high school are friends that you weren't even friends with in high school or close to in high school. You knew them all, and then out of nowhere you connect with them the year after graduation, and boom, you hit it off. You realize that you didn't in high school because you didn't get to know them, and then you're buddies. This goes with friends changing paths. There's people that go to college. There's people that become blue collar workers. There's people that move states. I don't know. Someone could leave the country, go study abroad. It's very wide ranging. And you're not all going to the same math class anymore. You're not going to the same lunchroom anymore. You're not walking the same halls, right? And that changes. That's a struggle for people. That was a struggle for me. It still is a struggle, where I see on Instagram, or on social media, I see all these old people that, I used to see in the hallways every single day for, some of you I've known since I came to the U.S. when I was in second grade all the way up until 12th grade. So that's 10 years, 9.5, 10 years of seeing you almost every single day, and then you're gone. That was a struggle for me. It was tough. It was tough. How do I go to a whole nother school, a whole nother campus, a college campus at that, trying to make friends there, trying to figure out what to do. Huge struggle. For me, it was even more difficult because since I'm staying at home, me heading to class was just literally that. Heading to class, driving to school, going to class, seeing my classmates, and then going home or going to work. It was never, let's go to this, sports game. Let's go to this, assembly. Let's go to this choir concert. I never really established myself in that. And obviously, I knew that was going to be a struggle, right? I knew it was going to be difficult for me. And doing this semester of study abroad in Spain, I got to be able to connect with people, right? I got to be able to connect with my classmates that I was seeing every single day. And that's something that doesn't happen in college unless you are on campus and you have a dorm room and you develop stuff with, your roommates around you and stuff. But I didn't get that. And that was tough. But it's also a decision that I made, right? It was a financial decision that I made I want to sacrifice my friendships in college. I want to sacrifice the college experience to be able to graduate next year with zero debt. And I made that choice, right? It was a choice that I made. Tough choice, obviously. But you live with it. And social media makes you reminisce, right? It makes you see, somebody's family, people, in our grades already have kids, have wives. I remember that kid when he was, sitting next to me in history class, raising his hands, asking questions about the homework. And now he's an adult, a dad, a husband, all this stuff. And it's difficult to grasp because I don't have all that. I don't have a kid, not married. I'm just locked into my stuff. But I'm also happy for those people because that's a big commitment. A commitment that I'm not ready to make at 20 or 19 or 21 or for a long time. I'm not ready to make that commitment. And it takes strength to commit to something like that. It takes strength to commit to marriage and to commit to kids. I'm happy for those people, always, definitely. Happy they took that path. But that's the other thing, right? Is you got this path of adulthood. That's straight up adulthood. Husband or wife or whatever, all the kids, that's straight up adulthood. Bills, all that stuff, living on your own. And then you got my college experience, right? Being in college, not being married, not having kids, not paying my own bills. And I have the easier path, right? But it's all different, right? It's different. And the paths will cross, right? Eventually, one day, I will be married. I will have a wife, I'll have kids. And then these people that didn't go to college, right, later on, might go into my path, might go to college. Who knows, right? Everybody's timeline, everybody's paths, it's all different. And that is okay, right? But yeah, social media, seeing people on Instagram, connecting with people, it's tough, right? You're not going to sit there and text, I don't know, gosh, my class was what, 200 people, 300? I can't remember the exact number. You can't connect, you can't text those people on a daily basis and be like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? You can't text every single person, right? You can't see everybody. And that's okay. You might live in the same city. But again, that's also the diverging paths, which is totally okay. Totally okay. We could talk about pressure and identity, right? For me, my family expectations was that I go to college, right? For a long time, even before I graduated or even before I decided to go to college, it was also a family expectation on me. And that comes with, the Hispanic background, that comes with being Cuban. And that's okay, right? I had those expectations on my parents, and obviously I'm not going to categorize all Cuban or all Hispanic parents, but that was what my parents had for me. And that was the path they had laid out. And I'm glad, I'm happy that they pushed me that way. They pushed me to go to college, to do this for 4 years, and go down the path of education. Totally okay with it. Happy, I'm glad. But it's not always the same for everybody, right? It can be different. And that is totally okay. It doesn't matter, right? Trying to figure out your future is difficult. It was difficult for me. I struggled at times. Again, I was talking about that struggle earlier. To figure out, is it worth it to go to college for 4 years, spend so much money to be a teacher where I'm not going to be making so much money, right? And this was before I had all my college money and funds figured out and scholarships and everything. It was before that, right? It was before I graduated high school. It was tough. Is it worth it? Do I pick a different path? Do I pick a different career? Why education? And that was a struggle, right? It was difficult to figure out what I was going to do and if it was worth it. And if it wasn't worth it, what is my other path? In the end, obviously, I chose education. And I'm happy. I'm glad I chose the path that I did 3 years into my education now. It could have been different, right? I could have decided to do something else. But again, as we've been talking, paths is different. Paths are different for everybody else, and obviously decisions could have changed everything. There's pressure. There's pressure to have it figured out. I felt that pressure. Like I was talking about earlier, I felt that pressure after I graduated. It was a struggle for me. I needed to get a car, right? I needed to buy a car. I needed to figure out how to get money to buy that car. I needed to figure out how I was going to pay for school. I needed to figure out if I was going to stay home. I needed to start school in September. So you're on the clock, right? You're on the clock, and there's so much pressure on you. But it's okay to not have it figured out, right? It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to involve your family. It's okay to reach out to friends and ask them to help you out. It's okay. Just because you do that doesn't make you any less better than anybody around you, right? A lot of people ask for help. A lot of people reach out to family members. I did it. I don't want people to feel like reaching out for help is a bad thing. Everybody needs help at some certain point in time. That's totally okay. Totally okay. And figuring out what comes after college, but also what comes after high school is 100% okay to reach out to people. What helps? What is something that helped me? I think finding my purpose. Obviously, my purpose as an educator, as someone who wants to help out kids, someone who wants to make the education system a better place. That is my purpose. And that is why I'm, about to be a senior in college and going to graduate and now make a lot of money. And that is my path. That is what I decided as my purpose in life. And if you can attain that, if you can figure out your purpose, it will make things so much better. If you can do that before or early on in your college experience, it makes such a difference. Because if you go to college and you don't know your purpose, I think it will be a struggle. I think it'll be difficult to make decisions to impact your future positively. But yeah, I can't speak for everybody, but that's what I believe. That's my thinking. Setting routines is something that helped me with finding that purpose. That sounds funny because when you're in high school, it's the routine of, waking up at 7, 8 a.m., going to class, sports after school, then work if you need to, homework, then do it all over again. And then you get all this freedom, right? You're looking forward to this freedom. And then you have no routine. You have no structure. You have to set that routine and structure for yourself. And again, like with all this stuff, it took me a long time to get to that structure, to get to the routine. I still struggle with it now. I don't really feel like doing homework, but I got to. I don't feel like going to class at 8 a.m., but I got to. And that's okay, right? You can mess up the routine. You can do whatever. But for me, setting a routine, setting a structure helped. I would say my freshman year was kind of a struggle with that, but last year, my sophomore year, was a little bit better with the routine setting and just being able to wake up on time. Freshman year was a struggle. Waking up, I had an 8 a.m. class, waking up every day at 7, getting up, driving 15, 20 minutes to school, getting there, not having class for like 3 or 4 hours after. And then you just sit there at the school. And for me, I didn't have a college dorm. So I'm just sitting in the cafeteria, sitting wherever, just doing homework on my own in a booth, It's a struggle. Staying connected, right? Staying connected to your family members. Staying connected to your friends, Someone might be on a completely different path than you, but and this is a two-way thing, right? I want to clarify. Staying connected with friends is a two-way thing. If one friend's reaching out to another, but then that friend doesn't make an attempt to stay connected, it's not gonna work. Connection doesn't just form from one person. It forms from 2 people, 3 people. Yeah. You can't connect to someone who doesn't want to connect with you. I'll tell you that. And that is something that's happened to me. Tried connecting with some people and it just didn't work. Didn't work. But that is okay. Gotta learn to accept uncertainty. I think that was my other thing with like not knowing if I was gonna have a car, not knowing which car I was gonna have, or money for it. That was the uncertain aspect, right? This past semester when I went to Spain, that was uncertain, right? I didn't know if going to study abroad in Spain, being away from my parents, if that was gonna be worth it, right? There was a lot of uncertainty going there, and there was a lot of uncertainty while I was there. And that is okay to have. But you have to accept it, right? You have to learn to accept it. You won't at first, but you have to just continue every day to learn that uncertainty, right? You want to build connections. Always try to build connections. Like I was just saying with the friends, but also as soon as you get to whatever college, let's say for my path, right? You're going to college. As soon as you get there, try to connect with as many people as you can, right? For me, I feel like I have a really good connection, like structure, I guess. And I developed that, right? It was something that I made an effort to do that. And I don't stay on campus like I was saying, but I still am able to connect to professors, the counselors, and all this stuff that eventually now are going to help me my senior year when I need their help, right? If you don't have those connections or try to reach out to the professors or whoever it may be, you might struggle. And then I've heard people complain, my counselor didn't tell me this my freshman year, and it's my senior year, and I don't have enough credits to graduate. Well, how come you didn't make that push, right? How come you didn't stay on top of those things? You got to do that. You got to know how many credits I need to graduate. How could I not graduate? Like, if I fail this class, what happens? You got to know the stuff. The counselor has, hundreds of counselees, students that they're helping out. You are your own person. These are your decisions. This is your life. And that's what I figured out, right? Day one, I was on top of everything, right? I took charges out that I didn't need. I took everything. You just have to be on top of it. If you can't be on top of your own stuff in college, I feel like it's going to be a struggle. Even a bigger struggle when you become an adult, right, after college. And you got to just be on top of it. It's your own stuff. It's not high school anymore. But it takes time, right? It takes time. It takes experience. It's not something that happens overnight. This keeps going back to why I started the podcast. It's to guide, to help people understand what it takes, right? It's not a perfect guide. It's not a perfect guide by any means. It is my opinions and my facts and, my way of doing things that could work for some of you. It could not, right? You might listen to my advice and be like, who's this guy? That's okay. I don't really mind. It's just what worked for me. I know that was a lot, right? I rambled, talked about that experience a little bit. And I just want to reiterate, everybody's path is not perfect. It's not, right? And you have to be okay with other people's paths. I'm going to use quotation marks, being better or being worse than yours. And that is okay. Right? That goes with what I just said, that no path is the same. One's going to go like this, one's going to go like this, one's going to go like this. It doesn't matter. right? I think paths are different for everybody. After high school, after college, during high school, everybody has different paths. And that's totally okay. All right, now we're going to be jumping into our Q&A section. I asked some of you guys to reach out and ask me some questions that I could talk about on the podcast. What's something high school didn't prepare you for? Well, like I had mentioned, I think managing time, I think that's a big one. It's very different than high school. In college, and yeah, it's time management is key. There's not a set amount of time for you to do homework. There's not a set amount of time for you to be in class. Nobody's forcing you to go to class. You just have to decide that on your own. And if you can't decide that on your own, that's a struggle. Trying to budget, because that's a struggle sometimes. Probably loneliness from the fact that, again, like I said earlier, you're not seeing the same people. They're not walking the same halls as you. Whole new world, different main characters, side quests, all this stuff that you got going on. You got to figure that out, right? You got to figure out, who am I? Who are these people? Struggle. All right, next one. Is it okay to not have your life figured out at your age? There is so much pressure to have your life figured out when you're 20, when you're 21. Why? Well, there shouldn't be any pressure, right? You can't compare yourself to others. Remember, diverging paths. Can't compare yourself to other people. You have to have your own doubts, your own goals, and you got to learn that life is not a race, right? You're not trying to take all the shortcuts that you can to make it somewhere before people. Life is life, right? Life is life, and you'll figure it out. I still don't have my stuff figured out, right? And that's okay. That's a good question. Why do friendships change so much after graduation? Well, I think people move away, obviously. Some people go to college, some people go to work. You got different priorities. You're maintaining friendships with people, but it takes more intention. You can't just go to the same math class and see your buddy, right? You have to actually reach out to that person, tell them to hang out outside of school because you don't have that school to hang out at anymore. You have to make plans. So that is intentional maintenance of friendships. And that's a struggle sometimes because, you got work, you got school and everything. If you got work, you got your family. And then you tell me I got to make plans with all these friends from high school. It's a struggle. But if you really value that person and you care about that person, you will make time. And you will make plans, and you will hang out, have fun. But it is a struggle sometimes. Why do you want to become a teacher? Well, this is a deep question. I want to give back. Obviously, I want to give back to the community. I want to go back to the high school that I graduated from. And that's always been important for me. Especially helping students navigate through the high school experience and then kind of into college and stuff. I think helping kids along the same way that other teachers helped me along, I feel like that is just so rewarding. And that's kind of what I want to get to, right? I want to have ex-students of after 10, 20 years be like, see me, in the store or something and be like, oh, Mr. Cruz, and they remember me. And it had such an impact for me. You got to do it properly, though. There's ways that you could be a teacher and not be good, trust. But my goal is to be the best teacher I can be. Not perfect, but the best I can be. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self? Well, it's just basically everything that I just mentioned in this episode. I think all the stuff that I talked about, the routines, the maintaining friendships, the staying connected, staying grounded, being okay with uncertainty, all those things go together. And I think when people realize that is the best way to do things. That's the advice, right? The advice is all those things that I talked about in this episode. I think those go a long way, right? It's not perfect. Again, it's not perfect for me. My 18-year-old self would be happy of where I'm at, I think. And yeah, the last 2 years have not been perfect, obviously by any means, or 3 years, but don't really have major regrets. I think the way that I've done things, I really would not change much, like career-wise or, I don't know, not going abroad or anything like that. Like, that's not advice that I would give my 18-year-old self. Just being, like, trying to stay more connected to people and all that. All right, well, I know I kind of just rambled on today and really didn't have much direction. I'm going to get it down and it's going to get much better. But I want guests on, right? I want people to come on the show. So, this is a PCA, public service announcement. If you have graduated from Wyoming, right? I want graduates from 23 would be my top choice, right, from my class. But if you graduated from Wyoming 24 or 25, and you guys would like to come on the podcast, please reach out to me. We could try to do something virtual. If you live further away, we could try to do something virtual. We'll connect. All right, I want people on the podcast. I want this to be about our community, and I want the younger generation to learn from us, right? They learn from people that have lived the same experiences as them. And that's what I want to give people, right? I want to give to the kids an experienced person in life to tell them, this is what I went through, this is what you could go through. You might not, but it's possible, right? And I want it just coming from me. I want it coming from all of you. So again, if you are interested, please reach out to me in my social medias, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. Reach out to me. We'll bring you on. We'll drink some cafecito. Have it right here. Drink some cafecito cubano. And we'll talk about a bunch of different stuff. Your experience, your story. All right. Well, thank you guys. It's been great. Looking forward to episode 3 next week, Sunday. Hopefully with some guests, but if not, we'll do another solo episode. And until next time, this is your host of Cafecito Wyo, Los, signing out.